Welcome to Movies That Matter, the podcast about recent films going above and beyond the call of box office returns to boldly explore a social issue affecting people's lives. I'm Nicole Finari.
And I'm Stacey Moore.
What movie should we overanalyze this week, Stacey?
This week we're talking about Colossal, the dark sci-fi comedy from director Nacho Vigalondo, starring Anne Hathaway as Gloria, a down-and-out alcoholic squatting in her childhood home after her boyfriend kicks her out for partying too much. After falling in with a local posse of slackers headed by Oscar, her childhood friend turned bartender, played by Jason Sudeikis, Gloria gradually realizes that a giant 80-story monster terrorizing Seoul, South Korea, is inexplicably controlled by her own physical movements. So, what did you think of the movie, Nicole?
I'm just burning to say this. I can't wait because it got such good reviews. I really disliked it.
Yay! Good.
What did you think?
Okay. I loved it. So that's good.
Oh,
this
you did love it.
Good episode. Yeah.
Okay. Yes, I was waiting. I thought we might be in wild disagreement about this, so I was not wrong. What did you love about it?
Probably how I loved that it took very kind of real, everyday, horrifying scenarios and juxtaposed it with, like, fantastical, campy, like, over-the-top, devices, like giant kaiju robots attacking Seoul, to make very serious topics, like, more palatable and easier to talk about in a movie in a more, like, entertaining way. I liked that. I loved the performances by Anne Hathaway and Jason Sudeikis. I thought they both did an amazing job. I loved how it completely overthrew all the expected rom-com tropes. I loved how, I love how it railed against, like, Western involvement, like, involving in foreign conflicts where, in proxy wars, it's like to work out, like, our problems between, us and Russia or us and China, but then we get to go home and just watch it on YouTube, and the poor locals are just left stranded, picking up the pieces, if they're lucky. I liked how it just tackled all these things. It tackled toxic masculinity. It was the emotional build was so, like, precisely executed. The characters were authentic from start to finish, even though they were surprising.
Ooh, were they?
Yes, I feel like they. I felt like it was so consistent, the way that they were, the
way
that each of them behaved. Yeah, go ahead, take it away.
So here's the thing. What do we know about Gloria? Where are her parents?
Are you asking me?
Yeah, where are Gloria's parents?
Oh, they didn't tell us.
Why is the house empty?
Well, if you're asking me if I think the movie would have been better with a bunch of, like, expository dialogue, then no, I'm not really interested.
I'm going someplace with this. We don't know. Right? How exactly did Gloria lose her job?
I presume for being an alcoholic screw-up.
Yeah, she sort of did something wrong, but that gets cut off really quickly in the discussion with Oscar. Where are Oscar's parents?
They're dead.
Who died first? Mom or dad?
The mother.
Yeah, how did he get the bar?
From his dad, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so here's the problem with this movie. For a woman at the center, this movie is totally about dudes. You actually know nothing about Gloria. It's totally unclear why the boyfriend even remotely wants her back after she's been an alcoholic mess. The first time he calls her, I'm like, why would he call her? They broke up for very rational, sensible reasons. In the second half of the movie, he makes this fake trip to see her and to win her back for no apparent reason whatsoever.
Oh, that's because he's totally toxic and gets off on bullying her and keeping her down. And if she's not there to dump on, then he doesn't get to feel good about himself. Like, the movie is about bullies, right? From her point of view. So that's why, you know,
Okay.
we get these explorations of these guys because they're both abusive in these two different ways.
Okay. I just, I mean, there's one woman in this thing. She gets none of the backstory or treatment that the guy Oscar gets. And it just behaves in ways that made me and the person I saw it with leave the movie going, man, this must have been written by a dude. Like, there's nothing about her that's compelling or interesting other than the fact that she's pretty and, quote, cool. They don't give her anything. And I left that movie thinking, wow, way to take a woman, make a movie supposedly about a woman and then make it all about the man. Like, to shift the entire second half of the movie. I found her final phone call with the boyfriend where she's like, I'm totally out of control now. Ridiculous. It made no sense to the plot. The speech was uninspiring. It didn't sound like something a real woman would say. I was just offended. I was just mad that they made this movie and then they just stole her thunder completely. And I couldn't handle, which you're better at, if we learned anything from our disagreement on The Lobster, the fact that this added up, like, what was the point of the monsters? Like, what? The explanation of how they came to be made no sense to me. Did it make sense to you?
No, that was actually the weakest part of the film to me, was that origin story.
Right. And so the metaphor of the monsters then becomes rage? Something like rage? But they're kids? And why is there sexual jealousy when they're kids? We don't know. Like, it. And
the monsters as a metaphor. Yeah, I think that actually works on a few levels. But as far as like the actual explanation of how it works out mechanically, yeah, I didn't feel like that was well constructed.
Right, but for me, like, it needed to tie together thematically, or else I'm like, say what now? Just have the monsters and don't explain it. I don't know. There were a couple things I really liked. I'm gonna take a radical turn on us, and
okay.
state and yeah, here we go.
Right.
First time ever in this podcast, I've really liked the CGI monsters.
Oh, Jesus.
I've done nothing but complain about CGI this entire time, but I thought they really worked.
And this is some of like the lowest budget CGI I've seen in like years.
I think that's why. Do you know what I mean? Like, it wasn't trying to be this super high tech thing. It just was what it was.
Sure. Yeah. I didn't mind them, but that wasn't even. I felt like the monsters were so like themselves were just so kind of peripheral that I wasn't really focused on that much. But that is funny that of all the CGI we've seen.
Why the people of Seoul do not clear a specific area at a specific time, knowing that monsters are going to attack every night, really bothered me.
Yeah, that's a total plot hole. And I do presume that was more along the lines of keeping it like the old campy 50s movies where you just saw people running in the streets screaming the entire time.
Yeah. And then, again, the person I was with pointed out, they have a child fall down just so we don't feel like they're faceless, soulless, pun intended, Korean people, you know, like, oh, audience sympathy. And I'm like, yeah, that was a cheap trick. But it could have been homage. I might be overthinking, or I might be underthinking it, actually.
Right. Like especially the one of the shot of the boy at the end.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's such an awkward old looking camera move, right? Him falling on his back and it coming down, and it's all very just over dramatic and yeah, not at all realist like the scenes back in, I don't know, you would know where in New York this is better than I, but yeah, the styles were definitely different.
I did think it was funny though in that vein, where they're in the bar and he sets off the giant firework and they duck behind the barrels like a Western. I was like, all right, that's amusing. Good, I'll give you that one.
Good catch. That's a really good catch, actually.
Yeah. So the other thing I liked, I just thought Jason Sudeikis did a really, really, really good job. I thought suppressed rage is like that simmering below the surface is not easy to pull off. Wild tonal shifts in you know within a scene I just thought he nailed it.
Agreed. Yeah, he did a great job. I've seen him in a few other things, but I can't recall seeing him in anything where he did this well. And he really, I think, is responsible for... No, I mean, I want to give Anne Hathaway her due as well, of course, because her performance is great. But the two of them, like, really built the kind of the emotional tension and just, like, you know, anxiety as the movie went along, to the point where there were several points where I was just, like, my heart was in my throat. Like, I was just, oh my God, like, somebody get out of this situation. I just couldn't take it anymore at certain scenes, and they're both responsible for that.
See, I'm not an Anne Hathaway fan. I'll just throw that out there right now. There's nothing that she's done that I've been particularly impressed by, and anytime she's had, like, a real serious role, like in Brokeback Mountain or in Rachel Getting Married, I thought she didn't do a very good job. So her as a serious actress, no, I just don't think she quite has the chops. And I realized in this movie, she acts alone. She just doesn't seem to relate to the people around her very well. And I thought Jason Sudeikis brought a lot to their scenes together where she gives nothing. And I think that's part of the issue with the boyfriend, because she's just in her own world. It's like she's doing a voiceover part and no one else is in the room. I don't find her a very generous actress.
Oh, interesting. I do find people either love or hate Anne Hathaway. She's one of the most divisive actors in general. I think maybe other than, like, I don't know, Tom Cruise. Like, I can't think of anyone else who, when you mention Anne Hathaway, people are either just like, oh, I adore her, or they're like, I want to spit on her. It's really interesting to me how that happens.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know anybody who particularly adores Anne Hathaway. I'm surprised to hear you say.
Oh, you do now. You do now. Yeah. Okay. I'm a total fan. Yeah.
Did you like her in Rachel Getting Married?
I loved her in that. Yeah.
Oh, I thought her big scenes just fell flat.
Oh no, that was another movie where I was just like I was stopped breathing at certain points. I was so uncomfortable with what was happening.
Yeah.
And the emotional tension and everything.
Yeah,
R.I.P. Jonathan Demme.
Yeah, that's a sad one. So, and then, I just, like, why even introduce the one character played by Tim Blake Nelson has a cocaine addiction? Like, that just, they threw that in for color and it made no sense. I don't know.
I'm not sure how that fit in particularly. Yeah.
But
Other than to just have someone have like a bigger crowd at the beginning and have one be able to walk out. But yeah, he's an actor that is severely underused.
Yeah. So I think, though, that the main point of disagreement, because I read a ton of reviews and no one seemed to have the complaint I did that actually Gloria is the, like, really underwritten compared to Oscar. But I think your mileage with the very large tonal shifts varied a lot. Did not seem to bother you.
I guess I didn't. I don't think that I was sensitive to them. I'm not aware of the tonal shifts that you were referring to.
So, early in the movie, like you said, it kind of sets itself up as a comedy. You think it might be going down a rom-com road. There's some serious moments, but not very many. And then there's, the super dark people in Korea are dying. And then we're back to having fun, hanging out at the bar. And then, the switch in Oscar as he gets more serious and more scary and more violent. And it turns into a bit of a horror film where they have like this knockdown, drag out fight. And then the end of the movie ends on this like totally lighthearted, oops, I went into a bar and I'm an alcoholic. And was like, what? Like,
I guess I felt like they fit together somehow. I do see how he was definitely, when I say he, the director was definitely using like the kind of the dichotomy of the people in the West watching horrific things happening that are directly or indirectly a result of what they're doing. Mm-hmm. And being able to be just completely like unfazed by that and go back to, as you say, drinking or hanging out at a playground after a bender or whatever. But then, I think that's something that, especially in the past couple of years, at least we've had to get good at, right? Like there were days like in 2015 where I would listen to my BBC morning news and just be crying while I was brushing my teeth because like the horrific things that were happening. Then I got to go to work, I have to keep going. And that's been kind of a surreal experience, I think, for Westerners. And we've been forced to kind of think about like, am I responsible for this? Is there nothing I can do? I really loved all the comments that they would sort of fling at each other about, oh, it's terrible. It's terrible, isn't it? Like, oh, there's nothing we can do. No, there's nothing we can do. When really, like, it is a direct result of what they've been doing. Like, they can never go to that playground again, for starters. Like, it was absolutely disingenuous for them to sit there and just shake their head and kind of go, oh, well. And I guess earlier she mentions, like, when she's like, says, well, where do the people die? And he says South Korea. And she goes, oh, that's a shame because no one will do anything if it's just in South Korea. It'll be like all those ceasefires that just stop the next day. Mm-hmm. So it's like, I don't know. I actually quite enjoyed that, how surreal the juxtaposition was between those two particular tones. As far as Oscar's change, I thought that was pretty steady and pretty honest. I do. Okay, for instance, at what point in the movie did you start feeling wary about him? Do you recall?
I was spoiled on where this was going.
Oh, okay.
But honestly, the moment he showed up with furniture.
With furniture, that's a good one. That's a really good one. That's creepy, right? You're like, did I ask you for furniture?
Yeah,
and he insists she did. My moment was when he first picked her up in the truck and said, I'm just blown away to see you here. And he had that little like facial tick. And I was like, girl, get out of the truck. Like that guy is bad news. And that's why, and then it just kind of incrementally grew from there to the point, where they were in the playground and that he like insisted on going to. And he says, well, why'd you even invite me here? And she's like, what do you mean? Like, you insisted on coming. And it was so, I thought that was so well done, that slow boil. And that's how abusive relationships go, right? You start out like, oh, he's so nice. And then, but there were red flags, weren't there? And then by the end, he's punching you in the stomach and telling you that if you leave, he'll kill people. Like, that's how those things go. And I thought it was so brave to put that in a movie.
Yeah, I know. I guess I just, again, from the female empowerment perspective, like, I do think it's right that she resolved it by killing him in one sense. Like, I didn't want, if that was how they were going to write the ending, I was glad that she didn't let him survive. But I wanted her to just say, do what you're going to do. I'm not responsible for your behavior. And I'm walking away from this. You know what I mean? Like, that's how you get out of an abusive relationship. Instead, we got this very unnuanced revenge. Like, well, I'm just going to kill you because you've been terrorizing me and other people. And it's like, I mean, it's a nice fantasy, vigilantism, but it's ultimately, I don't feel like it actually demonstrates Gloria's growth, which then we're back to her in a bar at the end of the movie, so maybe it wasn't supposed to.
Sure, I think, well, a couple things. I think her going to the bar was, at the end, was kind of like it was a joke that, like, normally her alcoholism would be the biggest problem in her life, right? Mm-hmm. Like, that would be, like, the main thing. And that's what I thought this movie was going to be about mostly, was her alcoholism and the destructive nature of that. And it was to a certain extent. But the joke being, like, that's, like, the least of her concerns. She's got, like, she's, you know, controlling a monster in Seoul. She's, like, trying to go out, save Seoul against her childhood bully who's also a giant robot. Like, she's in almost, I guess, 2 abusive relationships at once somehow.
Right.
Like,
I mean,
she's got
it's
so much
all
going on.
Yeah, it's all over the map.
Well, and that's why at the end it's like, do you want a drink? And she's like, ugh, and her face just falls like, oh, right, that. I forgot. I have to enter a program. I forgot. The unnuanced ending, it is unnuanced. I think that goes more to the aspect of the Western global superpowers working out their issues over, you know, poor or unsuspecting developing nations. I think the 2 of them tried working that out, like, between themselves in this safe place where, like, neither of them could really be hurt. Like, they were so far away from all the damage. They were so far away from all the bloodshed and also, like, just the economic damage. And it's almost, I did find it kind of beautiful that the way that she finally ends it is by actually going there. And then simultaneously bringing the damage to the U.S., like, to the homeland. So, like, that, like, he actually does feel it right there in the States. And then she accomplishes that by going and being with the people, like, right there on the street with them. And I thought that was kind of beautiful. I'm not sure what he was trying to say that means that we should do effectively, in our foreign
I honestly
policy.
think you're giving this movie too much credit. Like, I don't think it was trying to say any of that.
I think they set it up really explicitly at the beginning with their comments about, you know, the ceasefires and, oh, there's nothing we can do. And then I read the director's interviews afterwards and he confirmed that was what he really wanted to explore. In addition to the toxic masculinity. But anyway, I just found it really compelling for those reasons.
Yeah, okay. So, let's go piece by piece. So first, let's knock down the alcoholism because it was handled extremely flippantly. She just quits drinking one day, no problem. We're done. Which, again, don't introduce something if you don't know how to properly deal with it. It's my complaint about this movie. 2, let's see. Do we want to do global relations or toxic masculinity? Let's get out of global relations first.
Yeah, we did that a bunch. Let's do toxic masculinity.
Okay, but let me just say this on the global relations. I agree that it was trying to say something about global relations and our sense that the theater of war just becomes a movie or a YouTube video to us and it's not real. And we don't take it seriously when foreign people die. I think the movie was trying to say that. I don't read as much into the ending and the resolution of bringing it back to the U.S. Maybe I didn't read the articles, so maybe that's all in there, but I just saw it as cheap action. Like I said, I wanted more. I wanted real character growth from Gloria, and I didn't feel like I got it. So to that end, toxic masculinity, which I think we dealt with a way long time ago. So let's go back and revisit the nice guy TM.
Yeah.
Kick us off, Stacey. Toxic masculinity.
All right. Well, okay. So I thought about the nice guy a lot when he was nice guy TM, when he started bringing the furniture. Mm-hmm. But after that, it was like, and he even does say like no more Mr. Nice Guy. So I had to wonder if that was like that line was so cliche that I have to wonder like if he was actually if the script was referring to that.
That I did read into. Yes. I think when he says no more Mr. Nice Guy, like it's definitely referring to the nice guy TM.
Right. Yeah. Okay. But I feel like he was so far beyond that. Like he was so far beyond like that kind of subtle dynamic to where he was just straight up violent, abusive, awful. Like he was nice guy TM, but but with your just common garden variety
homicidal
terrible
maniac
person. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, exactly. Like we don't get to see his reaction to realizing that he's the robot, but his tone ever after is basically like thinly or just weakly bridled joy. Like he's so excited that he has this power to stomp on tiny people that are, relatively tiny people to his robot body self. And he just can't wait to get back to the playground and stomp on humans. He's just, and he punches her in the face and the stomach. Like that was, I mean, I'm glad that scene was in there because it's realistic, and to leave it out would have been pulling, figuratively pulling punches. But it was shocking. And I don't know, like it was just, he was just so over the top that after a while I was like, I can't even really think of him as Nice Guy TM anymore. He's just so overtly violent.
Yeah, so I do think that it does speak to the nice guy syndrome, where you convince yourself, and I will post reading materials because there's just a couple of things that I love about this topic. So stay tuned for the show notes on our website. This problem with the nice guy is he feels so keenly the power dynamic, right? That he's lusting after this girl that he can't have, and he has, if only he were, more attractive or higher status or whatever, which is the kind of guys she goes for. So I think, I definitely think the movie was trying to say, you give that dude any amount of power, and he will abuse it because ultimately he is an abuser. Like, he is not actually nice. He's not giving her furniture because he genuinely wants her to do well. He's doing it to control her and to get her to stay. And of course, the ultimate payoff is that she sleeps with him.
Yeah. And he right from the beginning, when he becomes very hostile when his friend Joel tries to kiss her. And I got really, and when he's like crying in the kitchen and saying, I'm so sorry, I feel terrible. Did I hurt you? Did I hurt you? Like that, I just wanted to vomit in my mouth. Like that was so just repulsive to me.
It's interesting to me, like how I definitely have had this conversation with dudes about the nice guy thing. And I know some of them really see it, like they see it in other guys and they get where it's coming from. And man, even at our age, like some of them still don't get it, and I think, again, there's this sort of a man's version of understanding what this nice guy phenomena is, but I don't think it's a lived experience in the same way that women have. And there are elements like that kind of abusive manipulation that it didn't ring true for me. And the over-the-top violence, like you were saying.
Yeah, they definitely explore it in a more traditional, physically abusive sort of behavioral pattern, where it's, first it's like, possessiveness or jealousy, and then outright possessiveness, and then it escalates to just, a little, like maybe just some playful fighting, and then it's like actually, beating her up and threatening to like kill people. Like that's and I mean that's how it works out, like in real life. Like at the end, this ends with her dying. This ends with her in a body bag if she stays.
Oh, see, I don't agree with you there. I don't think nice guy TM is the same as someone who's outright physically abusive.
No, we're saying the same thing. We're saying the exact same thing. That's why I was saying he kind of the character moved from nice guy TM to just common garden variety abusive.
Okay. Yeah, which, again, weird tonal shift.
But it comes from the same place of like fragile masculinity, right? Of like, I feel small. I'm a bully. I feel small. And so the only way for me to feel strong is to completely like annihilate someone else. into either nothing or just to making them feel smaller. And that's why they like smaller people to mess with.
I mean, that's the bully. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the abuser. The nice guy is, I feel small and I can't get what I want from women, therefore all women are, bitches, right? Mm-hmm. Like, it's the problem with their gender, and they go for the wrong things and they're all terrible. Like, he doesn't gain power, the nice guy. He just continues to see everybody else as the problem rather than himself, and never acknowledges that there's actually nothing nice about not genuinely seeking somebody's friendship, but trying to do a bunch of stuff in the hopes that one day they'll sleep with you. Mm-hmm. Like, so.
And then next to him, you've got a guy who's like, he's a nice guy, but in a different way that is almost even less, well, no, not less, obviously, but is not much better, which is, he's so nice. I'm talking about Joel. He's so nice that he just lets anybody do whatever they want. He doesn't stick up for Gloria when Oscar's punching her. Well, that could happen later.
Yeah, and he doesn't try to get Oscar to, right? So if anyone could have intervened without hurting anybody, it would be someone who was not the two of them, right? Mm-hmm. Who could have stepped into the playground and not worried about killing any Koreans.
Right.
And he doesn't do it.
He just sits there filming or watching his phone or whatever. Yeah, he was awful. And then he's in the truck with Oscar, after Oscar's been like threatening Gloria. He just gets in the truck with him and they drive off. And he's just kind of looking at his like his lap, like, oh well, there's nothing I can do. It's like, you're pathetic.
Yeah. So note to men everywhere, and hopefully some of our younger male listeners: it drives women absolutely crazy when you keep your douchebag friends. Like we really hate it. We are really like, this guy is terrible to women everywhere. And you're like, well, he's always nice to me. Right. Really? That's the kind of quality you want to have in a friend? Like, that makes us nuts. Right.
They're being complicit. That. It's because they don't mind. They don't mind.
Exactly. Dare we drop the word rape culture?
There you go. Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought it was pretty good at just showing all these stuff. And then and also with the ex-boyfriend being like, he would never lift a hand to her. But he loves, like, making her feel terrible. Like, that's how he feels better about himself. So there's all these different varietals of abuse.
Again, for all his trying to call out toxic masculinity, I felt like the writer as a man just presents, well, this is a beautiful, sometimes fun, sometimes charismatic woman that just sucks men in and then doesn't really make her a real person in any way, though she be the star of his own movie. Like, he just undercuts his message by being a dude and writing like a dude.
I guess I felt so I felt myself at the center of the movie as far as the point of view goes, the perspective. So I felt like you were seeing it from her point of view. You were experiencing it from her point of view, and you wouldn't run over your backstory to yourself. You would be looking at these characters from her point of view. And then we do experience her feelings as she realizes, like, these new things about, her, dare I call them powers. You see there's a lot of, like, close-up shots of just her, like, trying to come to grips with the reality of what's happening to her. Like, I felt like I was really in the moment when I was watching it, and I was experiencing, like, how towards the beginning, just how, like, directionless she is and how, like, nothing is working out for me, and then, oh my god, this is happening, and then, oh, who's this, and oh, I guess I have a job, and, like, I felt like that's why you didn't really get a lot of exposition about her in the way you did with them, because she was actually, you're seeing it from her.
Right, but think of all those scenes of them hanging out in the bar. You see Tim Blake Nelson do the trick. You hear... She just doesn't talk as much. Like, she actually isn't given... She just... I don't think... Even if without exposition, they could have just been like, they literally cut her off talking about why she was fired. And it's any opportunity that she has to speak is somehow curtailed or overshadowed by her just being cute Anne Hathaway. I think the men are just given a lot more screen time and backstory and well-roundedness that is, even in the minor characters, there's just not available to her, and she's the lead.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I think in a movie about toxic masculinity, I just came out of that movie thinking, wow, this was written by a guy. Like, he really didn't understand the subject matter. And he gave short shrift to the woman who was supposedly the lead.
Sure. Yeah, I guess I just didn't notice because I found her so compelling in what she was giving that I guess I didn't notice that she wasn't talking much. She does get some like the best lines in the movie. So this could be a quality over quantity thing. But then there were a lot of moments where I felt like I was angry at her character for not speaking up. Or for like when Oscar gets angry that Joel tries to kiss her, she's just like, it's okay, nothing happened. And it's like I was pretty pissed. I was like, no, you don't have to answer to him. You don't have to justify or protect or anything. It's like, what if I was gonna make out with this guy on this couch right now? That's not anything to do with you. Or there are other times where she just kind of, and I guess that's the symptom of being in an abusive bullying dynamic, is that you're like the frog in the boiling pot of water. Like, as it gets worse and worse, you don't really realize, notice the increments. But there were lots of times where she would just kind of go with the flow on things that I was like, no, it's a bad idea. You shouldn't go with that. You should not roll with that.
So this is interesting because I'm glad you brought this up. I mean, again, what is one of the number one complaints that a nice guy will make against a woman? She's a tease. Mm-hmm. She led me on. I thought there was going to be something more. And he literally puts a scene in the movie where she totally indicates to that guy that she wants him to kiss her. And then when he tries, she's like, what? No, what are you thinking? And I'm like, really? He literally makes her a tease? Jeez. Like, the first
kiss or the second one?
The first aborted one.
The first aborted one, sure. Well, I figured that was because it was in public, like the other two guys were in the room. But I don't know why. That's why I presumed that she didn't want to kiss him right then.
I'm just saying, a man wrote into the movie that makes her out to be a tease. Like, she's all flirty and come on, and then when he tries to do something about it, she gets all like offended, and I'm like, that's exactly what every nice guy I've ever been with has accused me of doing. Except I didn't flirt with them, or I didn't come on to them. I just genuinely liked them as a person in a non-sexual way, and that was just too confusing for them to handle.
How did you feel like the dynamic was with Oscar? Did you feel like she was flirty with him, or do you feel like she kept it pretty?
No, not at all.
Yeah, me too.
She kept it straight. Yeah. He doesn't have that complaint about her. But again, in a movie it's trying to skewer nice guys, it consistently undercuts itself by not really understanding the female perspective. That's my view. Mm-hmm. Final words?
Final words. Super fun. I enjoyed it a lot. I really, really enjoyed it a lot on an action level, and action as far as like not fight scenes, but just the plot and everything that happened, and the building tension, and watching these characters like gradually reveal who they are. I thought it was just really it was really scary and fun and entertaining.
Okay. I think our listeners know both of us pretty well by now. I think the Lobster absolutely predicted which way both of us were going to go on this movie. So,
I think you're
Stacey,
right.
See it.
Yeah. If you like,
that's why I knew you would like it.
Exactly. If you find your opinions more in line with mine, go see it. If you find yourself agreeing with Nicole more often, don't go see it. It's so funny you say that, because I was looking on Twitter today for just reactions to the movie. And it was like just a slew of like, oh, I loved this. It was amazing. Da, da, da. And I finally made it to one negative tweet, and it said, "This is the worst movie I've seen since The Lobster. The Colossal sucks." And I was like, that person has the exact same taste as Nicole. And that's when I should have known you would hate this movie.
Well, that person clearly didn't see Tarzan, but I'm with them.
There you go. How about we do a social impact score?
I think that's a great idea, Stacey.
Excellent. And for those of you who are first-time listeners, a social impact score is on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being that it changed nothing, and 10 being that the world we knew it is gone forever. You want to go first?
1.
1. Changes nothing?
Mm-hmm.
I
would give it a negative score if I could.
Like it makes things worse?
Pretends to be, yes. Pretends to be all about the toxic masculinity and is undercuts its own message by falling into the same negative views about women.
I'm going to give it a 6 because I think it's going to trick people who would go to see it just because it's either a rom-com or like, chicks who dig those cliche tropes of rom-coms that involve stalking and over-aggression. And also it might also bring like nice guys who are just going for the monsters, and they might actually have to be faced with thinking about these things and wondering if they're guilty of them. It only made about $2 million at the box office, but that was from 4 screens, so that's pretty good. So if it gets a wider release, it could have even more.
You posted on Twitter that it seems to be rolling out and catching on. So
yeah, that was interesting. I'm wondering if it'll get a wider opening.
Okay, so we hope you enjoyed this episode of Movies That Matter. If you did, again, hit us up on all our social media sites. We are doing something new, and I'm a little embarrassed to admit that we haven't done this and we should have done it before. As we go into production on our next episode, we are going to tweet out what movie we're going to talk about so you can maybe see it before the episode airs. So stay tuned to at Movies Matter Pod, right, Stacey?
That's correct. At Movies Matter Pod.
Okay. And you will find out what the next episode is, so you can be prepared because we are spoilerific.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. It's a required reading. We don't hold back on the spoilers, and now a bonus, you can comment back at us and tell us all the reasons we're wrong.
Tell us if you're a Stacey or if you're a Nicole.
Yes, we're archetypes.
We are. Okay. Well, as always, remember, movies matter.
And so do you.
We'll see you next time.